Hello, I'm not going to play a game today. This morning, before I went to work, I played a number of 10-minute games, and three of them were against the same player from Argentina, Senor Tomas. And something interesting happened in the game, in the course of the three games, which I wanted to discuss and look at. And also, the games are fairly interesting from a learning point of view. I'm not going to overanalyze them because there's three and it would take far too long. But I play e4 as ever. He plays the French defence and I play my usual Queen's Knight variation. He plays d5 and I play the other knight. And he insists on playing a French defence by playing knight to f6. And I go for the advanced variation and back up with the pawn. Now there are lots of different moves which can be played here, and I choose not my usual, but it's perfectly okay to play bishop to e3. Normally I play knight to d2 and then back up with the pawn here, and then find a way to move this knight and play the pawn here, and you know, that kind of thing. But today I decided no, I'm just gonna go for it. And of course now he takes, and the knight is threatening this pawn. So I have to take with the bishop. I could have taken with the queen, but then the bishop comes here. Now he can't come here with the bishop, and yeah. So he brings out his knight to attack the bishop, and so I attack the knight, and one of these two knights can't move. So even if he takes this knight, I can take with the queen or the knight, and he can't take this pawn because the knight behind will be pinned. So he pins my knight, and I castle, so that my knight is no longer pinned. He takes the knight on d4, and I take with the queen, so I'm threatening the bishop. And he takes the knight with the bishop, so we've both got a light squared bishop and a knight in the endgame. I take with the pawn, so that the queen can come over here, so that I can go to a reasonably quick attack. He attacks the bishop, I take the knight, push the pawn, I think basically to break up his centre. He attacks the pawn, but now this gives me the opportunity to attack his pawn on g7. He castles to protect it, but now my knight comes to d1, pinning the pawn on d5. So the queen comes out to attack the pawn on a2. I'm not really that bothered about that. The queen comes to h4, so that maybe I can think about playing knight here. Maybe I can think about playing rook here and getting an attack against the queen. Plays h6. I think really that's like blinking, and he shouldn't do it. So I take the pawn first so that the pawn isn't under threat, and then I attack the bishop with the pawn so that when he takes the queen, my pawns are still defended. And he takes the knight, and I think great, that's another open line against his king. And the rook comes to d4 so that I can come to g5. He attacks my pawn. I defend it and attack the g pawn so that I'm able to then play rook here and take this pawn. He attacks my rook and I come to g7, g5, sorry, to attack g7, and he pushes the pawn. And now when I look at the situation, this pawn is a bit difficult to hold on to. This pawn might prove difficult to hold on to. You know, and then if he wins that pawn, he's got two extra pawns on the queen side. He's probably going to win. So I think, okay, I've got a draw here. So I just take, knowing that I've got a draw. And the game which I've analysed in Norwegian today was a game by Save Tartakova, where it just suddenly takes a pawn on h2 with his rook. And Tartakova is famous for having said that if the conditions for your normal attack styles of attack are there, then It isn't difficult to find the combination. What he was saying was, I don't need here to work out exactly everything that's going to happen. If he takes the pawn, I take the queen, and I get perpetual check at the very least. He takes, and now he goes here, and I play. Really, he maybe should have gone the other way, but this gives me the chance to. I could have taken the pawn with check, but I play king to h1 so that I've got the chance to possibly get a mate. And he plays queen to c7 to defend against that, but it doesn't work. Doesn't work because I play check. So standard pattern. He can't block with the queen or I take it. So he goes with the king. I chase the king away. And then I take it with the queen, and the queen now the king can't move. The queen has to go in the way, and now I play check on f6, and the queen has to go in the way, and checkmate. Now my attack only gave me a draw, but it gave me the possibility to play for that win a rook down. And my opponent thought, I'm a rook up here, I'm going to have to try and win it. But obviously trying and win it was a mistake, and he lost that game. So that was that game. There was a brilliant move in that game. I can't remember what it was. It's not so important. Okay, so that was the first game. This was game number 2, and this time he played white, and we'll get rid of that. And he played b3, Nimzowitsch-Larsen attack, and I played knight f6. Yeah, sometimes I like to play g6 in this situation to encourage him to take the knight and ruin my pawns, because then the bishop comes here and actually my pawns aren't as ruined as they look, and it's a fairly playable position. It's a difficult position, but playable. But I decide to move that way to give him the chance so that I can get a pawn quickly onto d4. And I go for b5 and I stop his bishop from coming to b5. And I build up slowly for a queenside attack, and this allows c4 allows me to attack his bishop. He's got to retreat, and now I take the pawn, and no one threatens to take the pawn here and swap off the queens or whatever. So he takes the pawn, and I take the pawn, and he attacks the knight. This was carelessness. So I've got an in-between move. Yeah, he attacks my knight, but I can attack his bishop. If he takes my knight, I take his bishop. Alright, it costs me a pawn, but then he takes the pawn with his queen, and I take the pawn on b4 with my bishop, and I've got 2 pawns against 1 on the king side, and I'm ready to castle long, and, I have no worries. So, that was a mistake. And, yeah, his queen and my queen are now have an alignment issue. Obviously, I defend the knight because I want to be able to castle. And he doubles up on the bishop. Doesn't matter that he doubles up on the bishop. The bishop can move anyway. The queen is defended by the rook and the bishop, and the bishop is defended by the rook, by the queen and the knight. So, yeah, he might have been better getting a piece out which he hadn't moved already. For instance, the knight to c3, so that he could then play the other rook to d1. But obviously, I'm just going to attack the knight there, and he made a mouse slip. Well, he made a mouse slip. Sad, but true, he made a mouse slip. He immediately asked me for a draw. I declined a draw, and this was the thing. He said that some people are only interested in rating. If you notice, if you see the games I play, they're always unrated games. I'm not interested in rating. So I wrote that I was only interested in playing chess. I love to play chess, and in learning and teaching. That's what I'm interested in. Is there anything teachable in this? No, not really. It's just a mouse slip mistake. I think if he'd swapped off, there wasn't a good queen move on that line anyway. If he'd swapped off the bishop, I would have just taken with my queen, and then he's losing a rook for a bishop, so it wouldn't have been a good move anyway, even if he'd played where he wanted to. But it might be that he actually wanted to play to d4, for example. In which case, yeah, understandable. But then I would have just played d6, and the queens would have been swapped off, and the knight is still defended. Position is fine for me, and I actually like my position because I've got 2 pawn islands and he's got 3. He's got isolated pawns on the C and A file, which are going to be difficult for him to hold on to in the endgame. So I think, in theory, I've got a win anyway. But he plays knight here. I take. He takes. I take, and he makes his last mistake, which is to take the bishop, which of course leads to checkmate. So then we played a third game. I think by this time it wasn't, what am I doing? Yep. Sorry, we played a third game. I don't think by this time he was particularly my fan. But again, he goes for the French and I go for what I normally go for. And he plays the knight to ensure that it's a French. Now last time I played the advanced variation. There's 2 playable variations here, the advance and the exchange. So this time I'll go for the exchange. And he takes, and not necessarily the best move, but it's not a bad move to play the knight to e4. Keep a little more pieces on the board, and try and establish a strong center. And d4, c3 do that job for me. He's looking to fianchetto his bishop, defend my knight to work against that fianchettoed bishop. And now I might be threatening a revealed check here to attack the pawn on h7. And again, he reacts by playing to h7. Again, he blinks. And I come out with my bishop saying, "Oh, you don't know where I'm castling yet. What do you think?" And he backs up with the knight, which gives me the opportunity to take the knight with check and then move the knight so that he can't take my bishop, my knight on f3. So I do that, and then I block the bishop's attack on the knight. And now we're playing again. Same coloured bishops. Again, exactly the same number of pawns. I've got 4 on the queen side against his 4 on the king side. But my queen is better positioned. It has to do something about the rook on a8. No. Knight to d7 is a good response, and a castle. So I'm a move ahead in developments, and I'm also ready to put my rook on d1. E1, sorry, and have control of that semi-open file. So some slight advantages for me. He plays rook to e8. I'm not sure why he's doing that. But then I think, okay, I can come with a knight. It's actually a bit of a mistake, because if he plays knight takes, I play bishop takes, and he plays queen take, I play bishop take, and he plays queen takes, and I play queen here check. His king goes in the corner, I come here to support the pawn here. It's not a great position for me for the pawn I've given. It's not as good as I had thought. But he doesn't go for that. He retreats with his knight. Knight on f8. There is no mate. But yeah, a bit timid to put my. So then I come to support the knight with the bishop, of course, and he proposes a trade of queens, which I don't take him up on that offer. I'm thinking that I can play rook f to d1, rook a to c1, and then pawn here. Maybe this pawn will be under some kind of attack, but I've also got the idea of playing queen to g3 and bishop takes h6. So I have some ideas, so I'll keep open. But he's not letting me have those ideas. But now we've got 4 pawns each on the king side, and my pawn is much further forward than his. Alright, my pawn is staring at a brick wall, the pawn on e5, but I'm also going to get control over the d file. And now he attacks the bishop, but this gives me an opportunity to go for the d file straight away. I go with this pawn so they can't take this pawn. And yeah, he gets his queen out of the way. I played b3, yeah, it might have been possible to play b4 and give up that pawn, but yeah, I wasn't so sure. And I'll play c4, and now, yeah, fine. Just trying to make the position a little bit safer. I'm willing to have him swap off because I end up with the rook on the d file anyway. So he goes to double up, and I play f4 to maybe think about playing f5 and breaking up his position a little bit more. He doubles the rook, so I have to take. And now I go to chase the knight away. Now that I've taken this square and this square away, I can chase the knight away. So he stops me from doing that, and I go to attack the pawn on h4, h5. Very, very difficult for him to defend that. He plays a check, and I block it with the bishop. Block that check with an active move. Alright, it leaves these two pawns hanging, but he's got to do something with his queen, and that gives me time to play g3. But he thinks, oh well, I've got an in-between move now. But he hasn't got an in-between move now. Because when I move the knight, with the queen, he's no longer attacking my queen. And I'm attacking his queen, and I'm still attacking his knight. And yeah. And I'm still attacking his knight. And now I get a check. And his knight is pinned and attacked. And he thinks he can take that pawn there. But it doesn't work, because I take the bishop. Take the rook and my bishop up, and it's just a case of mopping up now, which goes very quickly. And now by playing that move, he's only got f6 again, and then his king's got to move, and then I get the pawn on f5, and then the whole thing collapses. So his king moves and I get the pawn on f5, and I'm happy to see him coming forward with those pawns, of course, and he abandons the pawns. And now this ensures that he's only got one pawn there, so I can always sacrifice the bishop for this pawn whilst concentrating on queening this pawn. And he resigns because he realises I can always sacrifice the bishop whilst queening this pawn. So they were very even games, very evenly played. I think he was, he was a little bit annoyed at me for not giving him the draw when he mouse slipped. But as I explained, I thought I had reasonable advantages in the position anyway, and I'm certainly not interested in gaining rating points. Oh, he said I'm interested in beginnings. I think he was trying to imply that I'm only interested in playing opening traps. I'm not interested in playing opening traps at all. I'm interested in playing unusual and aggressive openings. You know, a player I admire, I can't say I was so very influenced by him, but a player I greatly admire is Garry Kasparov. And Garry Kasparov, he was famous for having an unusual approach to every opening. He played something unusual, he played it aggressively, and he tried to win the game in the opening. I tried to win the game in the opening. That's my strongest part of the game. Of course, I tried to win the game in the opening. But yeah, I thought it was kind of a bit unfair of him to throw that accusation at me. I was probably a bit annoyed with himself for mouse slipping as well. But yeah, there wasn't really a good queen move for him to make in that position anyway. Yeah, don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment on my videos. Thanks. Bye.